Good afternoon, everyone. So now it's time for another track session now. So it's on the topic Open Cybersecurity Schema Framework, OCSF, Strengthening Security Posture with Data Normalization. I would like to call the fellow panelists onto the stage now. So I would request Atul Gupta, partner at KPMG, Head Digital Trust and Cyber Global Lead, Cyber for Tech, Media and Telco to come onto the stage. Thank you. So we have Lalit Kumar, Principal Security Architect from AWS. Chetan Sansare, Director Security and Regulatory Compliance, APAC, Salesforce. We have Puneet Ahuja, Head of Government and Not Pre-Sales, Palo Alto Networks. And we have Saurabh Aidi, Pre-Sales Lead, Large Enterprise Accounts, CrowdStrike.
As you can see, we're getting people in the room. We are also getting panelists in the room. So it's just that we're running a bit behind. That's caused a bit of disorientation for some of the people. But why don't you have a seat, Lalit and Chetan, while we get others on? Okay, we may want to just get started while my fellow panelists join upon. The topic which we are going to discuss upon today is a very unique topic, which is open cyber security schema framework. It's an area which hasn't been explored too much because it's very young. This as a concept got launched only in August of 2022. Please come. Please come, Puneet. Please. Okay, now with the panel full, I can also sit. So, as I was mentioning, this is a concept which is very new, and we all look forward today to have conversation around open frameworks and how those open frameworks can be used upon. But just before I get going, I was just reflecting on the pace at which the entire event is moving upon, and the power of this group that you have got today on the forum out over here. I was doing a quick calculation of the valuation of the company which this group represents. As you can see, each one of them represents one of the large global tech provider. Obviously, I don't represent a tech provider, I represent a consulting provider. But if we were to do a valuation of all of us together, of the global valuation of the organizations, this forum is worth 900 billion US dollars, right? That's the power of this forum. And just to put in context, it's higher than the GDP value of Switzerland, which is expected to be $850 billion end of December 2022. So it's a very, very high profile forum that we have got over here. It's unfortunate we got this slot where we haven't been able to fill the room. So, but please do spread the message across saying this is a very high profile forum that we've got and going to talk upon something which is really earth shattering, which makes impact at Davos also. So that's the power of this forum, right? There was a quick introduction done, but I think that's more what's out on the slides. It's much better to know people individually what they are passionate about. So let me start by myself. As you heard, my name is Atul. I am from KPMG. But that's my official designation, right? What do I like? Many things, but one of my passion, which has been there for now for a while, I haven't been able to accomplish is I want to be a marathoner. So I've been doing half marathons, and aim is to get to a full marathon. So if you think I cannot, yes, I am trying to beat some of the norms which are out there. But yeah, that's the journey on which I am. I've got along with me Lalit. Lalit is, as he describes, during the entire pandemic, when everyone was locked in the rooms, in the houses, Lalit was the one who was out there in the wild, So it was not wild, wild west; it was wild India. That's where he was. He was pretty much going across the country, living out of trucks. He has got his own truck where he lives out of, and that clearly defines his passion of how he does it, right? Then I've got along with me Chetan. Chetan, again, a big techno guy, hugely technical, and he loves to play with the new technology. He has come for this session all the way from Australia, and he's the one. The previous session was talking of cyber and physical. He's a true representation of that, where he's built upon a system which directly monitors the weather forecast and accordingly operates the garage which he owns up back in Australia. So that's his passion, which he runs upon. Puneet is someone who's an avid sports fan. Many of us are just come out of the fever of soccer and gearing up for India versus Bangladesh series, which is running upon at this point of time, the cricket matches, which is on. And then I've got Saurabh with me. Saurabh is someone who loves to explore the country over the weekends. That's what he does, going across the long drives. So if you want to talk beyond what we have got over there, you know whom to reach out post the session that we have got today. Right. Okay, so that's a quick introduction. I wanted to start off, and as I said, this is a very new topic where we're talking of open frameworks. But before we get into open frameworks, just wanted to get a perspective from the audience over here. What do we understand from open frameworks, and why open frameworks are helpful? So I'm assuming all of us use smartphones, right? So I'm not going to ask the show of hands of smartphones. But in smartphones, there are two ecosystems which runs. One is a very open ecosystem, which is an Android ecosystem. One is a not so open ecosystem, which is an Apple ecosystem, right? I'm the one who's been always on the open ecosystem. I have the benefits, but I get challenged upon. A very recent conference where I had gone and someone clicked a picture like this. After the conference, the person put his phone out there on the table and said, "I have done an airdrop. Please, all of you can pick it up from there." And that was something which doesn't work for me because that's a closed ecosystem. It just works within that community. For someone who was coming in from Android community, I was still going back on the day, "Hey, don't you have a WhatsApp? Can't you WhatsApp to me?" So that's the kind of a challenge which one comes across in an open and a closed ecosystem. But before we get started, anyone from the audience who wants to share their experiences on open systems using smartphones and closed ecosystems using smartphones? What are the pros, what are the cons that you get to see? And that will get us a very good landing on what we are talking upon today on open ecosystems versus a closed ecosystem. Anyone in the audience who wants to share their thoughts around open and closed? Okay. We need more energy in the room, right? Okay, we'll try building up. As panelists, we'll try building upon. So as I was mentioning, open ecosystem generally tends to make sure that we can bring in data from various sources. A closed ecosystem means we operate upon within that ecosystem or within that environment. That's been a challenge for cybersecurity for a very long period of time. Many of us are aware of security operation centers that have been set upon. I did a bold move within KPMG many years ago of setting up a SOC, assuming we got the silver bullet, assuming we got the solution which will find answer to all our problems. But the moment you set up a SOC, you realize you need a solution from a product vendor A, you need a solution from a product vendor B, and suddenly you start realizing they don't interoperate with each other. You don't get one management view. You need someone to create that management view on top of that. And that's where open cybersecurity schema framework is really designed upon to move us forward in that direction. Let me get my panelists on at this point of time. I'll possibly start upon with Chetan. Chetan, if you can share upon the perspectives on what's the real problem in the world of cyber that we are trying to solve upon at this point of time.
Thanks, Atul, and hi everyone. As Atul mentioned, all organizations have a significant amount of their budget, cybersecurity or IT budgets, towards detection and response because it's important to detect the cyber criminals and respond to or mitigate whatever we find. Now, in order to do that, again, as Atul mentioned, we build these large security operation centers. We have a variety of tools and technologies which are collecting logs from these devices that we use. Now, as a general principle, if you look at the security event log data, it's only useful if the log has a schema which defines what fields these analysts can query. So for example, if you look at a network log, you'll have a source IP which is initiating a connection, and you'll have a destination IP that receives the connection and responds to it. So now if you look at the log, it'll have a schema that defines the source as SRC or destination as DEST, and the analysts will use these definitions to write their queries on. The problem that we have, however, today is there is no standardization or there is no common language across these log types or tools for any of these schemas. Take another example. You have a team of cybersecurity professionals or analysts that want to run queries across large subsets of logs. So let's say we want to find across our network, across network logs, if a particular host has accessed or is connected to a particular IP. Now, in order to do this, what you need is you need obviously a schema for every log type, but you also need these schemas to agree with each other. Today, none of that happens. So what we are doing is we are spending a lot of time normalizing these logs, and we do that as well. So when you're normalizing logs, it does help, but it has a lot of challenges. Like you could run with fields which are blank, taking up a lot of space. You could have different log structures which are not interoperable. You could introduce new systems that generate new log formats, making it very difficult for you to actually write detection rules and queries. And that's the problem that the OCSF is trying to solve for. So not wasting too much time analyzing these logs, unifying the data, but spend more time, invest more time in protecting your critical assets.
Thank you, Chetan, for sharing and getting this started. As was initially be talked upon, it's all about interoperability. How do you bring disparate log sources together so that there is a meaningful analysis which can happen in a seamless manner? That's the point which Chetan was making. But let me bring in Saurabh at this point of time. Saurabh, you want to add upon a few more thoughts around the same, how really the benefit will get derived as OCSF becomes more prevalent?
Yeah, of course. Just adding to what Chetan mentioned, we at CrowdStrike, we observe that, with the growing threat landscape, security operations teams typically, get into a difficult spot when it comes to, they have to pivot through the data across multiple tools, right? And now this has become a problem because not only the collection of the data from the multiple tools is a problem, this is a problem that can be solved, has been solved. But right after the collection, we have to spend time in normalizing the data, in correlating the data. And then only the analysis part could actually begin. Right? So this is an inefficient use of the time as well as the resources is what we feel. The next, problem chaining to this one is the problem of data silos. So again, it's being touched upon that, if there are multiple tools, if we are ingesting in order to, investigate and detect an attack end to end, you need to have a cross-domain correlation. I hope I'm audible until the back, right? So you got to have those cross-domain correlations. And this, again, brings in the multiple tools into the picture. And all of these tools today talk different languages, right? So there's not a single unified language or a schema available that could probably, transforms this in entirety. So hence, this led to the problem of data silos. And just imagine, if I could explain it with the help of an analogy, out here, if all of the panelists starts talking different languages, right? So this discussion can never come to a conclusion, right? Unless there is a moderator or an interpreter who has been onboarded, who could, make sense of all the languages, aggregates the information, transforms it into a common language, and then, put the verdict back. So that's a big problem, which OCSF, the Open Cybersecurity Schema Framework, solves today, right? So what it does is it actually, we are trying to unify as well as transform the different data sets, and then which can be leveraged into or transformed into a common format, which can be leveraged by the security teams for faster detection, deeper and quicker analysis and remediation part of it.
Sounds like a great initiative, right? It's going to solve a big problem, which has been very clearly articulated by both Chetan and Saurabh. And maybe let me invite at this moment Puneet. Puneet, if you can talk through how is this going to transform this solution which we are talking upon, what is the benefit that's going to get derived upon out over here?
Good evening, everyone. I think I'm audible. So first of all, I like the front benchers. They're making notes. So I assume that they are the most serious ones. So giving us some respect. So my name is Puneet. My picture on the back end looks very younger. So don't go by the picture. So I'll give you some aspect around security first, and then maybe I'll answer what Atul mentioned. First, the Gen X, the picture I'm looking at. The people are very different from, from the generation which is at least on the panel over here. They know the power of collaboration. They don't make everything on their own. They pick out few things and then start building. So they don't believe in reinventing everything. So there is a group who do. They are into coming up with new ideas and new companies being formed. So that's different league. There is a league which knows how to utilize what has been built by people like us and then innovate over it. Once you say once you mention all this stuff, you start looking at a different territory. That means these people are already there where we are right now because they are taking our intelligence and they're building over it. Similarly, once you start ticking out the solutions which solve these problems, they are also working in silos, as Saurav was also mentioning. They're data silos. There are silos which are working in different direction to solve those or prevent that data, detect and remediate, as someone was mentioning over here. So there has to be systems which collaborate, solve something, and give you some actionables very, very rapidly back. So, think of a situation where someone is running a sprinter and you are a 800-meter, or a marathon walker like Atul, and you're trying to catch up. So you need to find out ways where you can reach earlier or can be proactive. So all this stuff can be solved once you have a clear or a single source of information. You can build something over it, orchestrate something out of it, take actionable, give rapid response back to the back to the organizations or the society. So this how I think OCSF will help us. One. Second is the community. Once once all of us on this side come together, we can solve a lot of problems, and we can also collaborate between each other, share intelligence, can be over and above what other or the adversaries are thinking about.
Thank you. It sounds like unimaginable because this was something which the industry was dealing for such a long period of time. How do we bring standardizations? How do we bring frameworks which are more open so that they become more interoperable? But it sounds like it's one of those magic pills. And maybe let me bring in over there Lalit. As you all know, Lalit represents AWS, and AWS is the one, along with Splunk, who has initiated this entire framework development. So it's an open framework. It's contribution from technology world. A lot of tech organizations are coming together to build this framework, but AWS has been right up there. So Lalit, your thoughts. Is this a journey which we have just started? It's a well-started journey. What are some limitations that we have currently at this point of time, and how do we progress from here?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Am I audible to everyone? Yeah. Awesome. Let's dive deep a little bit. Every anomaly is being expressed in the form of logs. That's how we know that there is an anomaly, there is something going wrong, because where we look at the logs. That's the first step. The second step is the logs from AWS, from Palo Alto, from CrowdStrike. They all express themselves in a different schema. So it's going to be a common schema. In a simplest of the term, OCSF is rendering schema, which is extensible. That's one. That means anyone can join in and can follow the rules of that and can actually start emitting logs in the same format. That's point number one. What does it bring? It brings the intelligence, because now the data model would be common across. So everyone can leverage the same data model. But now who's going to leverage it? The question is, who's going to leverage it? Today, how we analyze the logs. We push all our logs, we ingest all our logs into SIM. What's our source of truth? Probably a SIM. If we look at that, that's where we are ingesting all the logs. But the challenge is there any other technology, any other mechanism can you utilize outside SIM? So SIM is great, you're going to correlate, but now there are different vendors, different log schemas are coming in, you have to express them into one single schema. That's one problem. But the bigger problem is, apart from that SIM capability, is there any other capability which you have, can you leverage that? Now think a little differently. Think like this, that the data and compute part would be segregated. Okay. So data and compute will be segregated. That means there are going to be a place where all the data will be written, transformed, normalized and written into OCSF compliant data model at one place. And now not only the SIM, you can also apply any kind of homegrown tooling. If you look closely, any kind of analytics tooling runs something like a SQL like a query, right? That's what you do. Are we writing enough correlation? First of all, the question is, we are not writing enough correlation because the schema is not same. So I can't correlate between two different log sources. That challenge has been solved because now there's a common schema. Second challenge is, if I look at my data is either locked into Splunk, QRadar, ArcSight or Elasticsearch. If we look at the spectrum, now the data is no longer locked. It's in one single data model format, it's in a security lake, and now you can apply different toolings. Your business analysts, maybe they're pretty good with Apache Spark. They might be able to write much better job. So the way it will, when you ask Atul, what's the limitation today? Let me tell where the schema is as of now today. AWS started with Splunk, however, very soon there are 40 plus vendors are on board. When I say they are on board, that means they are committed that all their logs are going to be expressed, and gentlemen here, Palo Alto, CrowdStrike and Salesforce, we all agreed that we are going to express our logs into OCSF compliant formats. Now what's the limitation? Limitation could be, what about my application? The golden question, right? It's not the limitation, I would say, that the schema is being designed and the structure around it is designed that can consume large amount of logs from different sources. The limitation could be that when I'm writing my application, am I also taking those? Otherwise, I have to write normalization job, which are anyways written. But if everyone start expressing their logs in OCSF compliant format, it becomes super simple for everyone. The promise of OCSF is that any kind of analytics tool, whether homegrown or your existing tooling, can be applied to your data and you can bring in intelligence from across. Yep.
Wonderful. No one better than Lalit to explain that, as he clearly articulated, saying how this is path-breaking. And it all started with two great minds coming together, which is AWS and Splunk, and see the pace at which it has transformed. This got launched at Black Hat in 2022, which was August, not too far from where we are just 4 months ago. And the pace of change has been so rapid that 40 other technology companies have already adopted it or made their commitments of going ahead with open cybersecurity schema framework. Well, that brings me into an interesting segue to go across the 3 tech companies that we have got out over here, and maybe we can start from Salesforce to get a perspective saying now, as you know, OCSF is becoming more prevalent. How do you see contributing, or how do you see getting benefited out of OCSF?
Sure. So very recently, the Salesforce detection and response engineering teams, we evaluated the OCSF. And we did this considering 2 things. One is enforcing the schema that OCSF brings in to the Salesforce generated logs. And the other around comparing the current processes that we have, that we follow for log normalization. Now, in order to understand the OCSF better, what we did is we ran an exercise where we transformed a hypothetical event detection, a security event detection log into OCSF. And while we were doing this exercise and basically evaluating OCSF, understanding the schema better, we actually identified fields that could which were really interesting, but we could use these fields for potential better use. One of the examples was there is a remediation object field in OCSF. And what that does is it basically provides links to knowledge-based articles which the analysts who are doing incident triaging can use to take action on those incidents that they're observing. So what we have done now is we have basically kickstarted a program of work where we are getting all internal teams together, one to brief them on the new framework, the benefits of the framework, but also looking at prototyping, transforming all the logs that we generate internally into an OCSF compliant. So we want to aim to be an OCSF compliant producer of these logs. It's a very nascent stage, as Atul mentioned. There is not a lot of quantitative analysis done on the ROI, but basically looking at whatever we are doing, we definitely see a lot of value. And as was mentioned by Lalit, it's an open framework, open specification. So everybody will benefit if all of us here in the room, we are like very smart people sitting here and out there. If everybody can contribute towards adoption of this framework, the maturity and adoption will make life easier for all of us in terms of detection and response.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those inputs. Maybe the same question across to yourself, Puneet, saying how technology companies are going to either contribute or get benefit out of this.
Yeah. So contribution, as I think Lalit and Lalit also mentioned, that contribution is already there. So we already have commitment that whatever logs we share across with can be in OCSF format, which means that there will be a common language which everyone will be talking about. What you do with those logs is once it lands up in a data lake, AWS data lake. So what you do with those logs is a next question, which is a very obvious question which comes to everyone's mind. So you have everything coming out in the data lake, and then what you do with that so much of data which is lying somewhere. So you have to make some sense out of it. You have to extract that information out of it, which is meaningful to us. So then you run something, some sort of orchestration layer over it, which not only drive the intelligence out of it, convert it into actionable and push it back to the systems from where you have collected the log. So this completes the cycle. So all this can only be done if we have more collaboration, or if we can contribute, we handshake very closely, which we have anyways. Second thing which I wanted to highlight is it solves a lot of problem for us. For example, my friend is my competition and friend both, right? So we coexist, right? And we coexist, we speak different languages, as he mentioned. So now I'm talking OCSF, he's talking OCSF, we are giving information back to the common pool, and it's for the benefit of the organization and the customers and the users of our technology to drive those actionables and push it back in the same common language. So I think that will solve a lot of problem, and looking forward to how it goes in next few months and few years to come. But I think it's a great initiative.
Wonderful to see the commitment coming from the top technology providers, because as the adoption increases, it's going to help bring the consistency and seamlessness as we've been referring upon. Well, let me go to Saurabh at this moment and bring this collaboration point. In the world of cyber, there's always a viewpoint saying the bad actors collaborate much better than the other side of the fence. Is OCSF a step in that direction? Saurabh, what's your view?
Well, definitely. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, Mike.
Oh, okay. So definitely, the adversaries are collaborating. Typically, even we, as a breach investigation, organization, we typically see that, the government and large enterprises are being attacked by a cluster of adversaries. Okay, so there is no specific attribution at times. It could be, multiple organizations in China, collaborating together to, exfiltrate data, and that too in an automated fashion. And the organizations have been breached and they are not even aware about it since over a year. So this is a big problem. But at the same time, how do we solve this problem? Rightly mentioned over here is the power of collaboration pays off over here. At CrowdStrike, we truly believe that cybersecurity is a team sport. And hence, we have also formed a Crowd XDR Alliance. And it's an alliance comprising of all the industry leaders, such as Palo Alto's, Salesforce and other players of the world. So as part of that initiative, what we are doing is we are working to establish a common format for the XDR, or kind of a common XDR language to transfer the data among different disparate applications as well as the processes. Okay, so that our customers can benefit out of it in the form of stopping the breaches in a unified and holistic manner. Okay, so this is something which we have been doing since past couple of years, and it has become a natural extension to what OCSF is all about. Okay, so at OCSF again, we are talking about something, a kind of bridging the gap between different tool sets and come to a common ground so that all can talk the same language, all can log data and information in a common schema. So that's what we are working towards. In fact, along with AWS at CrowdStrike, our customers have already started, transferring the data to Amazon Security Lake, conforming to the OCSF standard. So our Falcon platform data can actually be fed into the Amazon Security Lake, conforming to OCSF standards. So this has started to happen.
So great to hear upon the collaboration and how this will help us to come together as a united force in dealing with the bad actors or the threat actors which we are dealing every day. I think it's also important for us to reflect that the connectivity is just getting increased upon. So on one side, the systems which were connected for a very long period, somehow they were operating at the same protocols. But with increased industrial connectivity coming through and newer technologies coming, such as 5G, which is giving us an opportunity to connect even remote systems, which in past may not have opportunity to get connected upon, we're getting to see multiple heterogeneous systems coming together. From a cybersecurity professional's perspective, it's a good indicator because now you'll have that much more telemetry to deal with. But as we're talking upon, how do you bring consistency out over there? So Lalit, if I can bring you over here, the world is more moving towards bringing heterogeneous systems together. And we are now talking of bringing open, consistent frameworks. Do you think these are opposite ends or there is a convergence happening here?
So these are the drivers. They are very clearly drivers of 5G, IoT. The scale of data being generated can't be handled by a single correlation platform or correlation engine. It can't be. So there has to be mechanism where we can segregate data and compute part. I just want to come to the previous question. One of the key change that we see is that now, let's say, example was given for Falcon. Falcon is not interested into, the promise of Falcon is not to store the data and charge you for the license for that, right? The promise is to solve the problem, identify what's happening with your data, identify signals. So consider this, let's say tomorrow if a Splunk says, hey, what's happening right now that all the data is being ingested and they are actually making money based on data, but that's not their business. That's not what Splunk like to do. Splunk would like to innovate and identify threats better. So one, it unlocks innovation. Why it's unlocking innovation is, and the driver for that is the scale, the 5G technology, IoTs. They are going to increase the ingestion and generation of amount of data. Are you going to keep on writing new adapters to ingest those data and normalize? That's where you're going to spend your engineering? Or you're going to look at what kind of alerts are coming, what kind of indicators of compromise, indicator of attacks are coming from that data. So probably you want to spend time there. So doing the right thing at right point of time. So this is very much in sync with that. Even today, when let's say if someone is not running an IoT workload, we're not still to do 5G, the huge volume, are we ingesting all our logs and are we able to take action? We are in a state where we are just trying to fix issues rather than building new capabilities. But new capabilities are being built, not in security. If you look at your own business, your own startup, where you're innovating, you're bringing new customer and everyone, but are you innovating at the same pace in security? No, we are not. The reason for that is we are still thinking about the same old primitives. So it challenges those primitives and changes those primitives. Yeah, so very much in alignment.
Great to see. While it may sound diametrically opposite, but there is a convergence. That's what Lalit brought upon. And it's not just a convergence, it's also an opportunity to innovate, very well articulated, saying, where do you want to spend the time? And invariably, I think that was also highlighted, you have to capture those signals, and there's a fatigue which is settling in the world of cybersecurity, because there's just too many alerts or too many signals which are throwing up. Do you want to really focus on that and create more innovation out over there so that you can identify that needle in the haystack, or you want to just work upon on bringing this different telemetry and just making it together? So I think clearly OCSF helps us to move forward in that direction, saying how do I find needle in the haystack before things really go wrong out over there. So thanks Lalit for sharing those inputs. Well, this gets us, I know we will start very soon getting some time checks. As I was waiting in the previous session, I was trying to give the time checks to that session also. So I know we will be getting very quickly onto that side. And before I get into that zone, I wanted to have that moment. Hoping all of you have seen the movie Three Idiots. I get general acknowledgement people have seen Three Idiots. And there is a moment in this movie where there is a date put on the wall saying that we'll come back on this date and we'll see who has reached where. So it's exactly the same moment. It's 22nd December 22. We'll put a date of 22nd December 23. There's a lot of promise which is being put out over here by all technology providers. If this was a conversation happening on 22nd December 23, the same forum, same audience, would we say we have moved forward on that opportunity and delivered on the promise that we had, or there is a miss out there? So I'm just throwing it open to all my technology provider friends.
So there is no option, right? So we have to. So as I mentioned, people, the next generation, they're very fast. So we have to, so I don't think that there is an option. We have to see the progress and we have to move forward. And I truly believe, and the power of collaboration can take us a step ahead. I'll just, give few pointers to audience, maybe if we can get some answers. The first one is the mega trends which you see in the next year to come. So if anyone can tell me what are the mega trends you are seeing as far as IT consumption or IT security or anything else regarding to digitization is concerned. So and anything which you can think of. So I'll give you a seeding. So the mesh architecture. Mesh is like it's grim. Mesh architecture. Okay, yes, that's one. Metaverse is second, right? Analysis is third one. Yes. CASB, yeah, that's cloud adoption, related to cloud adoption. Yeah. So there are a few other things which we are doing intentionally now or unintentionally. Is one, work is not a place to go now, right? It's an activity. You don't go to work, you start your work, right, these days, right? So that's the first trend, which started with the compulsion of COVID, but now it's a hybrid culture everywhere. Though we are trying to bring people back to office, but I'm sure everyone agrees that it's very difficult to get people to the office now these days, right? They still want to work from home, wearing Bermudas, right, and shirt on the top. So that's another trend. Third is cloud adoption, which has increased exponentially high, right? Once you say cloud adoption, and their metaverse is, identity, digital identity is another. Then the one thing which everyone missed out is a skill gap, the security skill gap, software chain, supply chain. So these are few other trends which we see, which will create some ripples in the market in the next year or so. And if you have to, cope up with all these trends, there has to be some collaboration somewhere. And I see a lot of progress over here in OCSF because we can collaborate all together as a team, run some intelligent tool over it, or some orchestration layer over it, drive intelligence, and do a rapid pushback back to the infrastructure, so that everything is, or vulnerabilities are being closed very, very soon. So again, to iterate, there is no option, right? We have to go anyways.
Yeah.
Can I add a couple of
please,
points here?
go ahead.
Yeah. So the way we see in 23 December, if we meet again here, couple of things will change. One, the SIM vendors offering will change because now the model has changed. So it's no longer going to be EPS and storage based pricing probably. So that's one change which I see. The change from our tech vendors side would be that not only the format is going to be common, but rather than the intelligence around telemetry will also be common. We are going to leverage better, we'll be better at detecting anomalies. That's one. The third thing which is I'm going to see is a wave of new age cybersecurity products or capabilities which people will take this OCSF format and develop on top of it. So that's going to come up. The fourth one, as a consumer, the difference I'm going to see is that they're going to ask their security vendor whether, hey, are your logs are expressed in OCSF format or not? Are you OCSF compliant? That's one. Some of our large customers they've already starting considering for their application logs to be OCSF compliant. So it will further go down and will go to the level of application so that everyone can have a common intelligence around it. So these are a couple of changes which I see will happen in next 1 year.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
And just to add, 4 out of 5 security personnel today have realized and firmly believe that the power of open source standards will serve as the way forward for the interoperability of future technologies. That's one. And how I see the benefits to unfold are primarily into 2 parts, in 2 ways. In fact, the first way is if OCSF becomes a success, then definitely, it's going to, it's not exclusively designed only to cater to the cybersecurity use cases. So which means that it can be leveraged by the organizations from other industry verticals as well. Okay? And second thing is technologies. It can be a breakthrough for technologies like XDR for security analytics, because that's what they strive to do. They have to do the collaboration among different disparate security tool sets today. So having a common ground, common format, or a schema for that matter, will serve that particular or ease the ingestion and collaboration among different tool sets as well.
Great points. I was preempting and I was absolutely correct. We will get an indication. We've already got an indication. It's time to wrap up. But before I wrap up the session, because it's just building up so well, the last one which I wanted to put out, is this one of those silver bullets which the world of cybersecurity was looking forward to? Anyone can respond.
There are no silver bullets. So if you are here for silver bullet, I'm sorry. Sorry to disappoint you. In security, there cannot be ever a silver bullet. It's always the context. We need to understand this. Security, it's not presence of control, it's execution of control. It's a muscle you have to wake up every day and work hard for it. So it's actually, the OCSF is actually the antithesis of silver bullet, because it started with a silver bullet. Hey, we have a SIM. Everything is flowing into our SIM and we are going to find anomalies there. That has failed. We all know that that's not a successful model. And that will never be, because situation will evolve. The log amounts will increase, and there will be newer and newer application with lower latencies. So no, there's going to be never a silver bullet, but rather than more awareness of what kind of a data, what kind of different sources and what kind of attacks. These will keep on evolving. So, but I think we have to start building more of a open and extensible solutions rather than looking for closed solutions like silver bullets.
Wonderful, wonderful. We'll come back. Any other panelists who wanted to make a closing comment around the same silver bullet? We're all good. Wonderful. Thank you for. We'll come across for a couple of questions, but just before we come across to audience, I wanted to thank all the panel members for talking upon an area which the world of cybersecurity has envisaged for a very long period of time. And it's taken, I don't know, more than 2 decades to get us out over here. The promise is there, and as was mentioned upon, it's no more a promise, it's a necessity. So hopefully next year when we do the same thing in DSCI forum again, we actually demonstrate how the success has happened using this. So on that note, let me put it back to the audience and see if there are a couple of questions out there. I already see some hands coming in from the front row. We'll give the opportunity to the front row and then we'll move forward. Yes, ma'am.
So when we are saying that we are storing the data and we are storing the log which is coming through data lake, so isn't it become concern for the consumer side who are having issues with costs related to retention of the data and whether they have to put that data in cold storage or warm, so how we are dealing with that?
Data storage is always expensive when you're storing the data along with compute. So ingesting data to a SIM versus ingesting data to general purpose storage is always inexpensive. That's exactly the concern it solves, that now you are no longer ingesting data to a SIM where you have to pay as per the data in EPS. Now you are storing it at general purpose storage, which is decoupled and you can apply your analytics at any time. So it rather address the cost question.
And one more, companies who are having PCI data in their database, so they do not prefer to, their data want to move from one tool to another, whether that is going to one log tool to another log tool for, schema formation or normalization. So how we are, taking care of those data?
I heard PII data. Okay. PII. Bad practice. Your log should not have any PII data. As simple as that.
Even if it is encrypted?
Even if it's encrypted. You have to then mask your data, and it's a very tedious process. While their capability exists, but why you're writing PII data to your logs? That's a bigger concern. So you have to relook at your architecture. You should not be writing PII data to your logs. It's a strict no.
And one question to Saurabh. You have mentioned that CrowdStrike is already working on the OCSF. So what kind of endpoint log we have already done with the normalization? Like what kind of endpoint log, either VM log or API logs? So what kind of logs we are already done with this framework, OCSF?
So before Saurabh answers it, I'm sorry, but in the interest of time, we would be taking this one last question and we'll be closing it off. Thank you.
All right, okay. We can probably connect offline as well.
There are actually multiple questions, but I'll be there outside, so we'll connect.
If we take this one outside, there's one last question over there.
Yeah.
I'll directly ask the question. First of all, being from a security architecture background, my compliments is a wonderful thing that AWS and the other technologists have actually come up with. I'm seeing this as one of the solutions or starting of a solution of the cybersecurity mesh architecture, because that also kind of, from a principle standpoint, speaks about the same thing. My quick question to probably AWS and the other technologists here, is there a plan to extend the OCSF to normalize the other type of security data? So I'm talking about vulnerability data, risk data, issues data, because all that I've been hearing, I'm sorry to say, is the log data. But I'm asking, is there, are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Firstly, let me just clarify one thing. OCSF is not targeted to a specific set of events. Okay, so it's as per the standard, as per the mission statement. It's an attempt to unify and kind of transform the data sets. Okay, so that data set could be anything. So whenever you are dealing with a schema, just remember you are dealing with a data set that is a collection or a representation of classes at the back. And each of those classes, as we know from our typical, programming backgrounds, is a class comprises of multiple objects and multiple event types. So we are kind of, juggling through different pieces to make one schema out here, right? And that schema could be anything. Just don't get, misled by the word open cybersecurity, framework over here. It's not an exclusively designed framework to cater to cybersecurity use cases, like I said. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know there are more questions, and when we started this session, I think the session, I predicted the session will warm up as we go towards the end of it. I'll be very happy to get to interact with all the panel members as we close out the session over the coffee or a cup of tea. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Let
you,
me hand back
panelists,
to
for the
organizers.
valuable insights. So before you leave the stage,